Well, we are really starting in just 1 minute. For the ones that came, thanks for coming. This will be Salesforce Connect Custom Apex Adapters for Heroku Redis. We have a very interesting title, so we are going to have a great time. First slide, of course, you know that, safe harbor. This means make your purchasing decisions only on the software that is currently available. You know, here at Dreamforce, perhaps you're seeing things that are in beta or even in pilot, so take care of that. For this demo specifically, we are going to use Winter 17, so this is a pre-release org. So a huge safe harbor for this. I'm Lucien Ostraga. I'm a 25 Salesforce certified professional from Argentina, working for mobile computing. We are a company that we love to create custom applications that fits customer needs. Because you know what, guys, we are in the customer era and we have to fulfill customer requirements, always focusing on customers. I'm holding the certifications you are watching right now. We have an agenda for today. A lot of things to do, a lot of things to learn, many topics to address. First of all, of course, I will present the topic, the scenario, and the elements we are going to work with. After that, I will introduce Heroku Redis as a database. Just to check the audience, how many of you knows what's Heroku? Great, a lot of people. How many of you knows what's Heroku Postgres? Fewer people, great. And what about Heroku Redis? Less people, absolutely predictable. After that, we are going to work with Salesforce Connect, and with Salesforce Connect comes new external objects that are something that is really exciting to work with. We are going to go so deep with Apex Connector Framework, which is exactly the use case we're going to do today. We are going to discover together new objects relationship that appears with these external objects. Finally, we're going to give you some extra considerations and resources to take this to the next level. Of course, at the end, some minutes for questions. And in case we have the answers, much better because you're going to leave this session happier. So this is our topic. First of all, I didn't mention yet, but this is my second Dreamforce as a speaker, and every time I'm presenting on a session, I'd like to include this slide. We are not just developers. With this, I mean, every time we could make something more even simpler, we have to do that. Because simple things are scalable, simple things are maintainable, simple things are simple, and of course, are easy to get integrated. So I don't know if you have realized that we are surrounded of APIs, so we can connect absolutely everything. In a couple of years, perhaps we have an API for these walls. We don't know. So we have to take advantage of that. We have to connect everything we can, because this is what we are doing here. We are innovating. We are doing things on a different way. So this is the use case scenario. We have 4 elements. We have a web application that's running on Heroku. This web application has a Redis database. We will talk about that later. Let me show you how is our application. It's really pretty simple. This is Cloud Airlines. Cloud Airlines is, of course, a company that sells flights. No, you're not watching it. This is Cloud Airlines. Cloud Airlines is US domestic flights with a Salesforce site. Of course, this is a fake web application, but basically we are offering three flights listed right now. They're all from Los Angeles and from different destinations in the United States. Basically, what we do here is just to book for a flight. We complete some information. This is me. We add an email address, a credit card number, and we have successfully booked for a flight. We have one less available seat because, of course, we are selling flights. This is our web application. This application has an external REST API that is publishing the data of this web application to the rest of the world. This is a REST API that is working on a Node.js application. If you haven't tried yet Node.js, here at Dreamforce, it's a great place to start working, especially if you come from another technology such as Java, C#. You will discover something absolutely new, and it's worth the risk. So we have an external REST API that publishes the information of this web application. We have Salesforce Connect, that it's a module of App Cloud that it's absolutely disruptive from other connectors. We are going to talk about that later. And of course, at the right, we have Salesforce Organization and Salesforce Instance. What is Heroku Redis? Heroku Redis is a database. It's a NoSQL database, but the most important thing we have to see here is that it's a key-value database in which, of course, we have a value and we have a key, and with that key, we obtain a value. It's like a hash map, and it's running on random access memory, so it's incredibly fast, even faster than solid-state drives. So we are working right now with the fastest database on the market. It has flexible data types, strings, hashes. For this demo, we are working with hashes because we have, of course, a key and we obtain a value. There are more complex data types, but it's a database that if you could make something interesting in just 1 or 2 days. It's not a complicated database. It's easy to use. The most common uses is for a database as a cache when we don't want to store for a long term our data, or if we want to implement a publisher-subscriber model as a message broker. The countdown is not working, so I don't know. How is the time? Sorry. The countdown is not working. Well. On the other hand, Salesforce Connect, it's a greatest tool. Was previously named as Lightning Connect, and if you have heard about Lightning Connect, now it's called Salesforce Connect, so it changed its name. Salesforce Connect, it's a framework that gives us seamless integration with an external data source. But it has a very important characteristic that it's absolutely disruptive, that there's no data replication. Here at Dreamforce, there are a lot of connectors available, a lot of brands. I don't want to mention anyone, but most of them are based on data replication. And in those times in which Salesforce storage is, it's expensive, Salesforce Connect allows us to access data on real time. This is real time, absolutely real time, without wasting just a kilobyte of data storage on Salesforce. Well, this is absolutely incredible. I will show you how to work on a couple of minutes. So the information we are accessing is always up to date. It works. We have 3 types of connectors. If you have an external data source that follows OData protocol, you are absolutely done. This is just a point-and-click integration. In case you would like to connect with another Salesforce instance, it's like a great substitute for the old Salesforce to Salesforce. In this case, we are accessing another Salesforce organization on the fly, of course, on real time. And at the end, if your external data source is not following the OData protocol, what you have to do is to write your own Apex connector, which is absolutely what we're going to do today. Salesforce Connect is used every time you would like to connect with a large amount of data that can't be stored, of course, within Salesforce, when it's data that's going to live just for a couple of seconds, and when you want to give real-time integrations. With Salesforce Connect appears new objects that are external objects, as you can see on this picture. They are pretty similar than custom objects. You're going to notice that it's an external object because the __6x extension basically maps your external data entities. I would not like to say tables because this is a NoSQL database and there are no technically tables. There are entities on the other system. And with this external object appear 2 new object relationships apart from the well-known lookup and master detail. Appears external lookups and indirect lookups. You're going to see that. As you can see on this table, there are no significant differences, except for that the data is stored outside Salesforce, not within. This is the most important. And with Winter 17, this is incredibly awesome. We have reports over external objects. This is absolutely new, and it's a great news for us. Of course, soon you are going to write perhaps formulas, triggers perhaps. Actually, we don't know that, but not yet. Apex Connector Framework. What we have here is a framework based on the data source namespace in which we are going to extend and override some method of 2 classes to implement our custom connector. This connector is going to be highly related with the implementations we have on the other external system, on the other external REST API. Of course, it's based on REST or SOB callouts. If the other system has an external REST API that is based on REST, it's going to be much easier for you. If it's in SOB, well, you will have to work a little bit more. Before jumping into the code, we have, as I told you, 2 classes we have to work with. You could have CRUD operations over external data. CRUD is create, read, update, and delete the external data. This is absolutely impressive for the ones that has trying to connect Salesforce with another external data source. At least to have read-only access, we have to implement 3 methods, things, query, and search. And on the other hand, for the data source provider, we have other 3 methods, that is get authentication capabilities, get capabilities, and get connection. Get authentication capabilities, basically you are telling the other system how is it going to be the authentication. Get capabilities is actually what you can do with external data. We can read, recreate, delete what we want. And get connection simply returns the instance of the connector. I will show you that. So it's time to jump into the code and create our custom connector. So the first thing we are going to do is create a remote site. I will create a remote site just because this REST API is not authenticated. In case you have implemented just a no-auth authentication or perhaps a basic authentication with username and password, you could use a name credential. If you don't know name credential, they are great. They are a very interesting tool. I will create Redis DB is going to be the name, and this is going to be the URL. I will save it. Oh, sorry. Sorry for that. We are on Salesforce. I have already created a remote site, basically to declare that the Salesforce can interact with an external REST API. And what I have to do after that is to implement on remote site settings on security section. This is Winter 17. We don't have the vertical bar at the left, so this is absolutely new. And the next step is to create both new classes. I will go to the developer console, and I will create it right now. The first, it's called Redis adapter. I will create a new class called Redis adapter. I will save it, and the other class, the data source provider class implementation. I will show you the code. Just give me a second. So we are done with this and go into the code. Of course, at the top, some global variables declaration and the name of the entities we are going to interact with. The very first sync methods tell us the structure of the external data source. So for each entity we want to interact from Salesforce, we have to declare it here. Every external object has an external ID that is mandatory, and this is the only field that is going to be stored within Salesforce as an index. The other is going to be consumed on real time with callouts. So we have a code, origin, destiny. These external objects are following the structure of our API. I didn't show you this yet, so if we want to ask which are the flights that are available right now, we have a wonderful JSON that has the number of booking, capacity, status, depth, etc. The same for bookings. We have a first name, last name, which is the flight, the credit card number, else. Also, we have the query method. This query method is going to be called every time you are accessing a list view on Salesforce because you're asking all the records. In case you want to access a record detail of an external record, this is going to be called also. And in case we want to access a related list of a specific record detail of an external object, we are also calling this method. This code, of course, will be available on GitHub, and you will have the time to analyze it because it's an implementation that could be absolutely different regarding your external REST API. So this is just an example of an implementation I did. So perhaps your implementation looks absolutely different. So basically, in all of the objects, I'm asking if I'm calling this method from a Redis flight or a Redis booking. After that, we have the search method. This is for social, or much easier for global search. When you are making a global search, so you are writing on this, you are calling this search method, and you are asking which are the available external objects to call. Sorry. So, see, I have this done. I'm ready to create the connector. So I will go to external data sources. I will create a new one. Since we implement these both classes, sorry, I have to show you the code for the other, the Redis adapter provider. This is pretty much simple. The get authentication capabilities, we are declaring how we are going to authenticate with external data source. We have chosen anonymous. If you're implementing name credentials, you could leave it as anonymous and delegate on the name credential to perform and perhaps a no-auth authentication or a basic authentication. But also you could do it this way. In get capabilities, we are telling the external connector what he actually can do with external data. And at the end, get connection is returning an instance of the other adapter, of this adapter. So we are done with this. I will create a new external data source. And since we created the two classes, we have another option apart from the OData and cross-org adapter types. I will keep the others as default, but I will make our external objects writable. I give it save. I will validate and sync. When we hit this validate and sync method, we are going to call the sync method we worked before, and it detects we have two external data sources, two external entities. I will put it sync, and when this is done, what we have is our external object created. Great. If we go to external objects here, we have bookings and flights. So the only thing we have to do here is just to go to tabs, as we were creating a tab for a custom object. This is really, really simple. Actually, it's on the same area in which we create a tab for a custom object, but in this way, we are going to do it for an external object. I will choose flights. The first icon fits great. I will keep the defaults. I will include in all applications. I will do the same for booking object. So we are done. So if all went well, we will have new tabs available for interacting with this this external object, sorry. Flights. And let's check it out. So we are accessing external data from Salesforce on real time. This is absolutely incredible. I can go to the record detail of this external record. I can change perhaps the capacity. We have 151 capacity right now, and perhaps I could increase it to 160. I will save it, and this is flight number 3. Let me check it on the web application. Web number 3, and we have 160 available seats. This is absolutely incredible. Thanks. As I told you, with external object, there are new relationships available, which are external lookups and indirect lookups. Basically, it works this way. If you have an external object, could has standard custom or even external childs. On the other hand, you could have a standard or custom parent object, but always with external childs. And if you have noticed something, our bookings are all related with one specific flight, which is obvious. But I will turn this into a related list, which is definitely impressive. Let me show you how to do it. So I will go to the, to setup. Right. To the bookings external object. Sorry. This is the custom tab definition. I have to go to objects. I will go to the booking object. We have the definition as it were a custom object, so even you could create a new custom field. This custom field will be persisted within Salesforce. This is obvious because we can change the external database structure. I will modify this flight that's already a text field to an external lookup. So I will change the field type. I will choose external lookup. Of course, it will be related with a flight. I will save. We have to refresh this because we are on. I will have to make it visible and read only. I will include the related list on flights. I will save it. We have to refresh this because we are on Lightning Experience. On Lightning Experience, some things could fail. You know that. Great. So if we go again to the flights custom tab, and we choose one flight, we will have a related list that there are actually the 2 bookings available. This is really incredible for the ones that know how difficult it is to integrate with an external data source and have this data organized this way within Salesforce. So we have, I think we have time. I will show you another thing before the Q&A and some extra considerations. Imagine we have a last-minute requirement from our product owner, and they ask us to monitor and manage this website, but because the fact is here we are managing and monitoring an external website from Salesforce. This is really crazy. And we have to do it from Salesforce 1. Well, actually, we don't have to do anything. So external objects are available from Salesforce 1. So let me show you something. This is my iPhone. I will go to Salesforce 1 application. And since we created external objects, we have our flight external object. I can, of course, accessing from here. We have our flight number 3. We can check it and check the related list too. And if we want to change an attribute and tell that this flight is not available, or just to put 15 available seats, I will save it. We have already saved data that is stored outside Salesforce from our mobile device. And if we check again on the web application from flight number 3, we have 15 available flights, available seats. So have you seen those videos in which, Salesforce videos on YouTube, when a business guy tells you, I run my business from my phone? Well, this is a great example of this. So to be finishing, extra considerations. Since we are working with Apex Unlimited is a rock band. I don't know if you know about them. Since we are creating Apex stuff, we have to respect Apex limits. So these are callouts, basically, that hits an external API. So we have to take care about the same limits. You're not allowed to make DML after a callout. So the same behavior for the other Apex stuff, triggers, batch processes, And in this case, we have a data set of just only 3 flights. But in case you would like to connect to an external data source that will give you a large data set, you have to manage paging. And paging has always to be implemented on server side. You could do something on the Salesforce implementation in Apex, but it's not recommendable at all because you're losing performance. I mean, even for filtering, all the implementation has to be on the server side. This is just a suggestion. Here are, of course, the session resources. Even the Node.js implementation of the API is there on GitHub, so you could also check for that on my GitHub repo, Dreamforce16. And of course, if you want to follow me on Twitter, it would be great. So thanks for coming, guys. And yes, of course, sorry. If you want to take a picture of this. And some minutes for questions and answers. We have one here.
The first question was when you showed Salesforce 1,
yeah.
the available seats was 151. Is this cached information, or where is this information?
The capacity that's already on the fly itself. I mean, it was consumed to the external REST API, and we have that value on real time, and we have modified that value. No, firstly it was 115, and we updated to 15. We could do it again if you would like to see.
Okay, don't mind, because I thought first it was a different number, and you have updated in the first use case the Redis cache or the Redis information with 160, and Salesforce.
Really?
Okay, never mind.
Even we can do it again if you.
The second question is.
Yeah.
I recently heard if you use OData instead of Apex implementation here, there is a limit like how many OData callouts you can do per hour. Is this something you can confirm? Do you know around this? And will these callouts be unlimited?
No, actually it's per transaction. I mean, the same governor limits we have in Apex is what you have to take in mind while developing your own customer connector. Of course, if the data set return on the callout is huge, you're going to have trouble, but this is the implementation you have to take care on the server too. So this is a connector. It's highly related and relies a lot on the server implementation of the API.
But the amount of callouts is not limited, not per hour or not at all?
No, it's just for transaction. I mean, it's the same Apex governor limits. Of course, from batch processes, you could make more callouts from external systems.
MuleSoft or Informatica Cloud, are they using these technologies, or this is just?
Well, actually, MuleSoft might be. I don't want to mention specific brands, but most, and either say that 99% of connectors available right now on the market are based on data replication, in which you have to synchronize one server from one side and the other on the other side, and basically you have the same information that most of the times are not up to date. So this is the most interesting thing about Salesforce Connect, because you're accessing data on real time. Definitely not. If something happens on the server, you are not allowed to consume the information, because the information is always stored outside Salesforce, unfortunately. Which it makes sense, because what we want to avoid is data replication. Anyway, if you have an implementation, an implementation based on data replication, that it's typically, if the server crashes, you will have the information but not update it, of course.
Thanks, Luciano. I'm a little bit curious about, and I'll check out your Node.js code. Thanks for sharing that. But I'm a little bit curious on the architecture of the Heroku side. If I were to want to expose a endpoint that I can use with Salesforce Connect, is that just a simple REST-based endpoint, or is there anything special you need to do to make it compatible with your Apex connector?
Well, actually, for this demo, of course, this is an open endpoint, and even you could consume it from anywhere. If you can consume it right now from your phone. But I don't know if I'm answering your question, but you have to implement the authentication as difficult or easy as it were on the external system.
So I noticed when you configured your Salesforce Connect connection, you had an option for the Redis connector. Was that added when you saved your code, or was that a native option?
No, on the data source provider implementation, we declare that we have to authenticate anonymous with the other system. That's the way in which we decided how we authenticate. On the identity type, we could also, while creating the external data source, you could create per user identity or based on name principle. If you want to share the same authentication for all users, or just one per profile for per user, sorry.
Okay, but authentication aside, is that a native option to just establish the external data source, that Redis Connect option?
Oh, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Authentication on this example.
That was the name of your class that you
Yes,
saved?
exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Exactly that. Just something. We have Chad Kelly, that is senior technical architect here in the room, so we can give him a big applause. He knows much more than us, definitely.
Thank you for the session. Just I have a question. Is it possible to relate external object with a Salesforce native object? And how is it going to work in the, like, for example, if I relate them using external ID or something like that, and I list all my Salesforce custom object, is it going to make a request to the API to actually grab all the external objects that are related to them, or that's like they're living in the different worlds?
I think that actually at this moment there is not as seamless as it were presented, in terms that you could query a standard object, but not with external objects on the same call. There are some restrictions in terms of running Apex. Perhaps you could implement a query more method. The most important thing we have to understand here that the data is stored outside Salesforce, and you can perform basic operations like create, because we are not sure that transactions are atomic. So it's something that is highly related with implementation on the server side, and it may fall definitely. In this case, it ran correctly because Heroku is near Salesforce, so near in terms in the same data. How can I say it? Geographically, there are proximos. This I would like to mean. But of course, it could be you have to deal with timeouts may happen, and when you are running external reports, this could fail definitely, and it's something that has to be correctly implemented, investing the necessary time.
So the Heroku application you had, you exposed the Redis application through an endpoint.
Yeah.
Is that just something easy to do, or did you have to code that to handle, like, creating new fields and all that stuff?
Yes. At the beginning of the session, I suggest you, for the ones that are not familiar with Node.js, In Node.js, you could write your own API, a REST API, in just less than 10 lines of code. It is not super easy, but there are a lot of available examples in which you can copy it, and if you do it correctly with callback functions, you're going to have a REST API available in just less than an hour. I mean, it's super easy in contrast with another implementations or other APIs written in Java, perhaps, or I don't know, C#. So it's just very, very basic. You have the example of this that it's allows you to make CRUDs, create, update, and delete data. It's available on GitHub. So there are not just, let me show you how many lines of code is, but it's really, really simple. So we have, for this external REST API, we have just 81 lines of code. In contrast with another application, it's super easy.
Is the person who implements the connection to the external data source responsible for sanitizing the data? Or is there something in Salesforce that automatically says, oh, this is...
Great question. Apex allows us to make an insert async method that has a workaround for if the other system is not responding. And it will enter in a loop in which it's going to be trying to create or update the data on the external system if the external system is not available. Of course, you have to program it. You have to code it, sorry. But this is a workaround. Even if you run anonymous code over external object, it will tell you that you're not allowed to do it because you're not sure that if those DML operations truly worked. So let me show you one more thing. If we go to the developer console, and we look for our external objects, yes, we have to refresh it, I think. Well, the external objects are not appearing. Well, we have a SOQL query, luckily here. We can perform this kind of queries over external data, which is great about Salesforce Connect. I didn't tell this, that for end users, the experience of working with external data is absolutely the same. There is a great abstraction of this, and perhaps sales rep might be monitoring and checking which are the flights available right now from Salesforce without never knowing that the data is not technically stored within Salesforce, and the location is another one. This is great, and you can configure your profile, role hierarchies, those kind of things that you are available right now for custom objects. You could do it for even external objects. If you run code anonymously, it will tell you that you're not allowed to do it because you are not sure that the DML operations were correctly done.
What does testing look like on external objects? As far as writing unit tests, can you just insert them the same way?
Unit testing actually you have to implement mock responses for making unit testing for this. Because
okay, so just the same way you would testing a call out.
Exactly that. Exactly that. Well, I think we are running out of time. I hope you...
One more, Luciano?
Yeah.
What happens if you don't own the external source that you're going into and they decide to change something on their JSON side? Do you have to go into the external object? Like, because with OData you can resync, but how do you know that you have to go in and do you have to change your
Great
code or
question. Every time the external structure is modified, you have to recode your adapter on the sync method and resync just to click on that button, validate and sync, and you have to give the latest updates of the external source. One thing that is really, really important every time you're creating your own implementation, and when you deserialize this callout, this JSON, do it untyped. Because if the external source is modified, you could have some trouble. So every time you could use deserialize untyped on the Redis adapter. So after making the callout, try to call this Apex method, because it's a generic way to deserialize the JSON we have as an input. You could also deserialize as an inner class, but if the structure of the JSON has been modified, you're going to have a crash. Yes, you could also create, yeah. Yeah. Actually, there's no way to. You have to be updated and always changing the connector. There's no way, and perhaps it may fail if there's. Sorry. Yeah. Yes, exactly. I don't understand, sorry. Well, we can address it. Yeah. The structure of the request has to fit exactly the request that the server is expecting. And it's something that you have to, because again, this is your own implementation and it's going to be highly related about the API we're going to hit. So it has to have the same, actually there's a method that it's making exactly that it's shaping our data into a JSON that the server is expecting to decode. So well, we are done. Thanks for coming, guys.